They weren't old enough to vote, some not even old enough to ride a bike alone. Yet they carried out acts so disturbing, so cold, that the world stood still. These are the youngest killers, children who committed crimes that scarred their communities, changed laws, and left a haunting question behind. Can evil be born? They say kids are innocent, blank slates, born without darkness. But what happens when a child picks up a knife, a rock, a gun, and takes a life? Not out of fear, not out of defense, but out of something deeper, colder, harder to explain. From boys who beat toddlers with bricks to girls who killed just to see what it felt like. These children didn't just break the rules, they rewrote the definition of what a killer could be. This is Concrete News Network, and today we bring you 15 of the most infamous child criminals in modern history. Some were victims themselves. Some were monsters in the making. All were too young to legally drive, but old enough to destroy a life forever. Our countdown begins not with a gang member or a troubled teen, but with an 11-year-old girl with curls and cold eyes. Mary Bell, age 11. United Kingdom, 1968. On the day before her 11th birthday, Mary Bell strangled a 4-year-old boy in a condemned house. Just weeks later, she killed again, this time a 3-year-old. Her reasoning? She said she liked hurting things and wanted to know what it felt like to kill. She carved letters into one of her victims and returned to the crime scene multiple times. The media called her the girl who killed for fun. After serving 12 years, she was released under a new identity and today lives hidden somewhere in the UK. Number 2. John Venables and Robert Thompson, age 10. United Kingdom, 1993. Two boys, 10 years old. They skipped school one day in Liverpool, went to the mall, and left with a 2-year-old named James Bulger. What they did next was beyond comprehension. They tortured him, dropped bricks on his skull, and left him dead on train tracks to be cut by a passing train. Captured by CCTV, convicted, released at 18 with new identities. One reoffended. The debate still rages. How do you protect society from a child? Number 3. Eric Smith, age 13, United States, 1993. With red hair and glasses, Eric Smith looked like the kid you'd trust to help carry groceries. But one day, he lured 4-year-old Derek Roby into the woods and murdered him with a rock. He then went to summer camp like nothing happened. His confession shook his small New York town. The motive? Rage, bullying, and something far darker underneath. Number 4. Lionel Tate, age 12, United States, 1999. Lionel claimed he was just play wrestling. The problem? The victim was a 6-year-old girl named Tiffany Eunuch. Her body showed signs of a brutal beating, skull fracture, broken ribs. The court said this wasn't a game, it was murder. He was sentenced to life without parole, the youngest American to ever receive that sentence at the time. He was later released but continued to have run-ins with the law. Number 5. Jesse Pomeroy, age 14, United States, 1874. The first known American child serial killer. At just 11, Jesse was caught torturing younger boys, cutting, whipping, and locking them up. At 14, he slit the throat of a 4-year-old girl and dumped her body in an outhouse. He was sentenced to life in solitary, where he remained for over 50 years. A monster in a child's body. 6 children, 5 lives taken, and we're just getting started. Josh Phillips, age 14, USA, 1998. Josh's story starts like a suburban nightmare. A missing girl, a neighborhood search, and a horrifying discovery, her body hidden under the bed in Josh's room. 14-year-old Josh Phillips murdered 8-year-old Maddie Clifton, then played video games while her body was just feet away. His motive? Fear. He said he panicked after hitting her with a baseball. But fear doesn't explain the brutal stabbing and strangling that followed. He was sentenced to life without parole. Alyssa Bustamante, age 15, USA, 2009. Alyssa dug a grave days before the murder, then lured her 9-year-old neighbor Elizabeth Olton into the woods and strangled, stabbed, and buried her just to see what it felt like. She wrote in her diary that it was amazing and that she felt pretty satisfied. Her chilling words and her teenage smile made headlines around the world. Craig Price, age 13, 15, USA, 1987-1989. Craig Price was 13 when he killed his first victim, a neighbor. Then, he killed again, and again. By 15, he'd murdered 4 people, including 2 children. He stabbed one victim over 50 times. His arrest shocked Rhode Island. Today, decades later, he's still behind bars, not for the murders, but for violent behavior inside prison. Brenda Ann Spencer, age 16, USA, 1979. On a quiet Monday morning, 16-year-old Brenda Ann Spencer took a rifle and opened fire on an elementary school from her home across the street. She killed 2 adults and wounded 9 children. When asked why, she said, "I don't like Mondays." That one quote became legend and inspired the song by the Boomtown Rats. But the tragedy behind it was no music story. It was a massacre. Jordan Brown, age 11, USA, 2009. He was just 11 years old when he shot and killed his father's pregnant fiancée while she slept on the couch. His motive? Jealousy, resentment, or maybe something darker. The case divided the nation. Tried as an adult, later overturned, he walked free after nearly a decade. But to many, the questions still remain. From killers who smiled to those who never spoke again, these next cases will challenge everything you think you know about childhood and crime. 11. Graham Young, age 14, UK, 1962. Graham Young was obsessed with poisons. At 14, he started secretly testing them on his own family. He poisoned his stepmother to death and nearly killed his father and sister. After being released years later, he poisoned co-workers, killing again. He became known as the teacup poisoner, a quiet genius with a deadly hobby. 12. Daniel Bartlam, age 14, UK, 2011. Inspired by a soap opera plot, 14-year-old Daniel Bartlam beat his mother to death with a hammer, then set the house on fire to hide the evidence. He wrote a script beforehand, describing the murder like a scene in a film. In court, he barely blinked. Fantasy and real life had fatally blurred. 13. George Stinney, Jr., age 14, USA, 1944. He was just 14 and stood less than 5 feet tall. George Stinney, Jr. was convicted of killing 2 white girls in the Jim Crow South after an interrogation with no lawyer, no evidence, and no mercy. He was executed by electric chair. 70 years later, his conviction was overturned. Was he a killer or just a black child in the wrong place at the wrong time? 14. Cynthia Brown, age 16, USA, 2004. At 16, Cynthia Brown shot and killed a man who paid her for sex. Her case went viral years later, sparking national outrage over how the justice system treats exploited girls. She was sentenced to life, but granted clemency after 15 years. Her story became a symbol of survival, trauma, and redemption. Some of these children were predators. Some were products of pain. Some were both. But every one of these stories leaves behind the same question. What happens when innocence dies too early? In our final act, we return to the victims, the voices lost, the lives unlived. Because behind every young killer, there is someone who never got to grow up at all. Every name we've said, every child killer we've shown, had one thing in common. They didn't act alone. Someone else always paid the price. Victims whose faces never made the front page, names erased by time, lives ended before they could begin. James Bulger was just 2 years old. He still sucked his thumb. He loved shopping carts and cartoons. He was led away from his mother by 2 boys and never made it home. Maddie Clifton played piano and rode her bike after school. She was 8 years old. Her murderer slept above her body for days, while her parents begged the neighborhood for help. Elizabeth Olton liked glitter, texting, and her pink cell phone. She was 9. Alyssa Bustamante was the last person to see her alive. Derek Roby, Tiffany Eunuch, the Stinny Girls, the poisoned, the beaten, the shot, the forgotten. We often ask how a child could kill, but maybe we should also ask, how do we forget who was killed? The victims deserve more than a name in a file. They deserve to be remembered, not as headlines, but as lives. Before we close, we say their names one last time. We end not with judgment, not with rage, but with silence. Silence for the lives that ended too soon, and silence for the ones who ended them. Some were born into chaos, neglect, abuse. Others were raised in normal homes with birthday parties and bedtimes. But something broke. A wire came loose. A spark turned cold. Maybe it was trauma. Maybe it was evil. Maybe it was both. But no matter what caused it, the result was the same. A body buried, a future erased, and a question no one can answer. Can a child be a monster? Or is every monster once a child? We may never know the answers, but we can remember the questions. We can fight to protect the next child, not just from being a victim, but from becoming something far worse. This has been Concrete News Network. If you watched this far, thank you for holding space for the lives lost and for the truth behind the horror. Because the truth is this: evil doesn't wait to grow up. And sometimes, neither does justice. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know more stories you guys want covered. Thanks for watching. Signing off, Concrete News